Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. That line didn't come from a self-help book. It came from a dim chamber under stress, the House of Commons, August 1940, while London shook and the sky over England burned. Churchill stood there, voice rough, clothes rumpled, and marked a truth for every generation. Courage is often carried by the few when the many grow tired. That moment wasn't a quote on a poster. It was oxygen for a nation that felt it was running out of air. Tonight we don't just recite him. We move with him, through letters scrawled in mud, through speeches carved under pressure, through private notes that tremble with frustration and resolve. We take his words out of museums and drop them into your hardest week, because what he meant then still matters now, when your fight is not in the clouds, but in your calendar, your bank account, your living room at midnight. Picture the setting, the summer of 1940. Britain stood alone. The Luftwaffe hammered the skies. Pilots rose, slept in minutes, and rose again. Churchill watched names disappear off a chalkboard and felt a debt he could never repay. His phrase, "the few," wasn't theatrical. It was a ledger of lives. He wanted people to see scale, to feel how small groups tilt history. What does that mean for us? It means in a crisis, you'll be tempted to scatter, to do everything, to shout in every direction. Churchill's first lesson cuts the noise. Concentrate on the few things that actually hold the line. One or two actions, relentlessly repeated, can carry 10 times their weight. For a nation, it was pilots in hurricanes of steel. For you, it might be the phone call you don't want to make but must, the habit you should build and stop betraying, the one relationship you need to repair even if your pride resists. When the sky is loud, choose the few and fight for them like your life depends on it. But Churchill's life isn't a simple poster of victory. Before he became a symbol of British resolve, he walked into humiliation. After the disaster at Gallipoli, he resigned. He was blamed loudly and often. He could have gone quiet, hidden somewhere comfortable, become a clever critic instead of a wounded warrior. Instead, he went to the Western Front and wrote letters home by candlelight. Letters that sound like an officer who has tasted the sting of his own limits and chosen to stand anyway. The smell of mud, the sound of distant shells, the thin line between courage and fear. He lived it, page by page. That's not glory. That's grit soaked in cold rain. He learned something in those trenches, not a slogan, a posture. Keep your head when the ground shakes, and keep your duty when your name is stained. He didn't pretend his regrets vanished. He carried them, and then he carried on. Imagine if you did the same. Imagine if the worst chapter in your story didn't become the ending, but the training ground for your next command. What if your failure is not an indictment but a furnace? There's a phrase Churchill used in private, half joking, half brutal. KBO, keep buggering on. It wasn't elegant. It was the creed of a man who had no time to pamper a wounded ego. When a plan breaks, KBO. When critics howl, KBO. When you lose the room, the revenue, the rhythm, keep moving, feet on the floor, hands on the work. Not recklessly, not blindly, just forward. Persistence is not pretty. It's the dirty, unglamorous motion that gets you out of the trench and across the next field. But here's the twist that makes Churchill more than a caricature of bulldog toughness. In the same years he learned KBO, he learned to step away. He picked up a paintbrush. He called it a rescue. After the storm of failure, he found a hobby, not to escape duty, but to survive it. He wrote about how the intensity of color, the small war of brush and canvas, steadied him. He was honest about the black dog that visited, his name for the dark fog of depression. He didn't romanticize it. He gave it a name and then built defenses: light, color, open air, friends, and work that had no public vote to win. What's your brush? What's your field or your canvas when the black dog pads into the room? This is not just self-care. It's strategy. The man who would one day galvanize a world also scheduled time to be small, to be new at something, to fail quietly in a way that healed. In modern terms, it means you protect anchors that make you sane, walks without your phone, reading that has nothing to prove, a craft no algorithm can corrupt. Because when crisis returns, and it will, you'll need more than caffeine and bravado. Let's go back to the chamber in August 1940, when Churchill praised the few. He did not celebrate luck. He celebrated readiness. Those pilots were not miracle workers. They were prepared workers. Hours in training, skills sharpened long before anyone cared. If you want to stand your ground in public, finish the drills in private. Churchill's own private discipline was a storm of reading, note-taking, dictation, revision, argument, and rest. He studied words like a commander studies maps. He didn't wait for lines to appear at the perfect time. He made them appear by force of preparation. Now imagine your crisis is not a war, but a week of rejections, a business bleeding, a home full of tension. The enemy is not airplanes, it's doubt. Churchill's way is not just to be brave, it's to get specific. He would draw the map of the crisis, put pins in it, name the threat. In 1946, at a small college in Missouri, he named a threat so clearly the world felt the chill. An iron curtain has descended across the continent. He wasn't fear-mongering, he was map-making. In your life, vague anxiety is a fog. Name it, and suddenly it's a set of roads. Financial, skill, direction, health, name it, and you can plan a route. A quick scene, dim office, late night, ashtray full, lamps low. He dictates, paces, dictates again. A phrase is sculpted, not born. That's a lesson. Don't worship talent, build craft. Turn your mornings into the kind of factory where ideas get sanded, not simply admired. The people who will be called the few in your story are often the habits you practice when nobody claps, the calendar entries you keep even when they feel small. That is the air patrol you send up before the fight begins. But imagine if Churchill had stopped after Gallipoli. Imagine if he let disgust write his next chapter. No 1940, no the few. No Iron Curtain speech to clarify the coming cold. It's easy to say, well, he was Winston Churchill. It's harder and truer to say, he built Winston Churchill out of rejections, scorn, and revisions. He learned to harvest the fuel in his own embarrassment. So can you, if you stop narrating your setbacks as destiny. Midway through our journey together, let me ask you something practical. Which Churchill line strikes you hardest, and where does it meet your life right now? Share your answer in the comments. I read them. And if this kind of hard, honest history helps you hold the line, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Here's another thread that runs through his letters and speeches. He refuses to outsource morale. He treats morale like a duty, not a mood. When he speaks to the nation during the Blitz, he doesn't pretend fear is fake. He frames fear as a force to be wrestled into usefulness. He gives people a job, endure, prepare, decide. For leaders, of families, teams, communities, that's the assignment. Don't gaslight people about how hard it is. Give them posture, give them a task. Courage is not just a feeling, it's a form you hold under pressure. And yes, the pressure is real. He makes you feel it. He doesn't hide the blood in clever turns of phrase. He says the cost out loud, and that honesty makes hope credible. That's the second edge of his leadership. Hope without cost is sugar. Hope with cost is bread. When you face your own mess, don't skip the cost. Say it, count it, then frame the fight in words that are stout enough to hold your weight. If you don't have the words, borrow them for a while. He did. He devoured history. He studied sentences. He stacked his mind with phrases that could carry men across fear. You can do the same. Pull language into your day that outlives your mood. Speak it until your hands move. Now come with me to Chartwell, his home. The war is not at his door, but struggle always is. He walks the garden. Brick by brick, he builds walls with his own hands. The rhythm of bricklaying quiets a mind that could have drowned in worry. He paints. He hosts friends, argument, laughter, food, and voices in old rooms. This isn't laziness. It's rhythm. Leaders break when they can't find rhythm. The engine overheats. Churchill understood. A day needs moving parts that refuse to be swallowed by the single crisis. You are allowed to build small, sane, human routines that keep you human. Later, when the world calms, he warns again in Missouri about a danger behind fresh smiles. Some thought him dramatic. He was simply early. Clarity isn't cruelty. It's mercy. In your life, there will be curtains that descend. Quietly, slowly, almost politely. If you wait to name them until they harden, you will have fewer moves left. Name the pattern early. Say, this is procrastination. This is envy. This is distraction. This is the habit of quitting the moment humiliation rises. Name the curtain. Then find your allies and your tools. Churchill never won a war alone. He stitched coalitions, of nations, of departments, of personalities that didn't like each other, but needed each other. He built bridges with Roosevelt, pressed, persuaded, annoyed, charmed. Here is your translation. Stop trying to be a solo miracle. Recruit help. You don't make yourself weak by asking. You make yourself effective. His letters to allies were part diplomacy, part pressure, part theater. He knew people move when you honor their role. In your struggle, who holds a lever you don't? Who needs to be asked clearly? Pride will always say, I'll handle it. History will always answer, you'll handle it faster with allies. Then there is the voice. The sound of him matters, but not because it's perfect. It's weighted. He measures. He pauses. He means it. That's a lesson too. Slow down when you speak commitments. Don't release sentences you don't plan to carry. The world bristles with overpromisers. Be the person whose words smell like work. He had that smell because he wrote, endlessly, carefully. If you struggle with purpose, write more, even if it's a page at night. Pour confusion into ink until patterns show themselves. It worked for a man surrounded by ruins. It can work for a person surrounded by notifications. But imagine if he had never forgiven himself. That's a real risk. You fail. You memorize the failure. You replay it until it becomes identity. Churchill remembered his losses, but he refused to worship them. He never let his past embarrassment stop him from drafting the next sentence. That's how you should approach your day after a mistake. Clean the mess, keep the lesson, then walk forward as if you're allowed to try again. Because you are. A final return to 1940. The country is fragile, and he knows it. He knows morale is a living thing that must be fed. By truth, by tasks, by a voice that doesn't flinch. When he says, never in the field of human conflict, he's not exalting war. He's exalting contribution. He's pointing every citizen toward a posture, gratitude toward those who stand, and a willingness to stand where you are. There are pilots in your life, the nurse in the night shift, the friend who keeps showing up, the worker who builds the quiet systems that keep your home or team alive. If you're one of the few today, tired and unthanked, this is your recognition. If you've been standing around waiting for inspiration, this is your assignment. Choose your few and fight for them. What he meant then still matters now. Never make your fear the main character. Never mistake failure for identity. Never confuse a break for a betrayal of duty. Never outsource morale, and never misname a threat. Prepare when no one watches. Rest like it's part of the plan. Ask for help before you break, and when the black dog visits, brush color into the day until your hands remember what hope feels like. If Churchill were sitting across from you, cigar forgotten, a glass reflecting a low lamp, what would he say? It wouldn't be soft or cruel. It would be clear. Hold the line. Prepare your few. Speak plainly. Take your rest. Write your next page. And when tomorrow knocks like thunder, answer. Calmly. Completely. You do not have to be famous to be faithful. You just have to be ready when it's your turn to stand. So, lift your head. Mark the map. Pick the task that matters. And keep going. Not perfectly. Faithfully. The storm does not get to define you. Your response does. That was true when the sky over Britain burned. It is true in the quiet battlefield of your life tonight. Stand firm. Fear loses.